I wipe down the bar counter with slow, circular motions, the rag catching on the occasional cigarette burn or knife scratch that tells the history of this place better than I ever could. 20 years of spilled whiskey, broken promises, and the same blues records spinning on the jukebox have soaked into these wooden floors. Bennett's Bar and Grill, or Jack's Place, as the regulars call it, breathes around me like a living thing, the neon beer signs casting blue and red shadows across the walls as Thursday night crawls toward Friday morning. The crowd tonight is steady but not packed. A few booths filled with college kids slumming it away from their usual downtown spots, a handful of construction workers still in their dusty boots, and the usual Thursday night regulars who've been warming the same stools since Bush was president. Maggie moves between tables with practiced efficiency, her tray balanced on one hand, a smile that doesn't quite reach her tired eyes. She's been with me for 12 years, knows every inch of this place as well as I do. Through the haze of cigarette smoke and dim lighting, my eyes drift toward the far end of the bar, where Liz leans forward, laughing at something Rick Davis is saying. Her auburn hair catches the neon glow, making it look like copper wire. Rick, strummer to his fans, all three of them, has been playing weekends for the past 2 months. Decent guitar skills, mediocre voice, excellent at making my wife laugh in a way I haven't managed in years. I turn away, focus on arranging the whiskey bottles so the labels face forward. 23 years of marriage shows in the way my hands automatically straighten the bottles while my mind wanders elsewhere. 3 empties need replacing. I bend down to grab fresh stock, feeling the familiar twinge in my lower back. "Jack, darlin', 2 more Lone Stars for the boys in the corner." Maggie's voice pulls me back to the present. Her eyes flick toward Liz and Rick, then back to me with a question she's too loyal to ask out loud. "Coming right up." I pop the caps and slide the beers across the bar. "How's your boy doing at UT? Still studying?" "What was it?" "Engineering, and spending my tips faster than I can make 'em." She smiles, the genuine kind this time. "Says he's building robots now." "Robots? In my day, we just hoped the car would start." I nod, grateful for the momentary distraction from the sound of my wife's laughter floating down the bar. Maggie squeezes my forearm briefly before whisking the beers away. The gesture says everything. She knows, she sees, she's sorry. Back to work. The night won't tend itself. I check the ice, wipe down the speed rail, restock the garnish tray. My hands move through the motions they've performed thousands of times while my eyes keep returning to them like a tongue to a sore tooth. Rick leans closer to Liz, his fingers brushing against her wrist as he speaks. She doesn't pull away. Instead, she touches his arm, her wedding ring catching the light. They're talking about music. I can tell from the way Rick's hands occasionally lift to mimic holding a guitar, from the animated way Liz nods. She used to look at me that way when I'd tell her about my plans for the bar, back when I still had plans beyond making it to next month's rent. A glass breaks somewhere, followed by apologies and laughter. The jukebox switches to Stevie Ray Vaughan. 2 guys argue about the Longhorns' quarterback situation. Normal night, normal sounds, but everything feels tilted, like the floor isn't quite level anymore. "Hey, boss." One of the young bartenders, Jason or Justin, I can never remember which, gestures toward the dwindling stock of tequila. "We're almost out of the good stuff. Want me to grab another bottle from the back?" "I'll get it." I need the walk, need a minute away from the sight of my wife's hand now resting casually on Rick's forearm. The storeroom is cool and quiet, just the hum of the refrigerator unit and the distant thump of bass from the bar. I stand there longer than necessary, breathing in the smell of cardboard boxes and liquor. When did things change? Was it gradual, like ice melting, or did I miss some crucial moment when I could have turned things around? 15 years ago, Liz would work the bar with me, both of us laughing and moving around each other like dancers who knew the steps by heart. Now we orbit each other like suspicious planets, keeping our distance, the gravity between us weakening day by day. I grab the tequila and head back out. They've moved closer. Rick is showing her something on his phone, their heads bent together, shoulders touching. Her smile is the one she saves for people who aren't me. Wide, unguarded, young somehow. Jack? The voice belongs to Dan, a retired firefighter who's been drinking the same bourbon, same 2 fingers, same time every Thursday since I bought this place. Earth to Jack. I blink, realize I've been standing still, tequila bottle clutched in my hand like a weapon. Sorry, Dan. Long day. Longer night, looks like. His eyes flick toward Liz and Rick, then back to me with the uncomfortable sympathy of a man who's been there. Pour yourself one? On me. I do, grateful for the burn of cheap whiskey, for the momentary clarity it brings. I don't drink much anymore, can't afford to lose focus when the margins are this thin, but tonight feels like an exception. The night stretches on. The crowd thins. Rick finally packs up his guitar around midnight, but lingers at the bar while Liz counts out his pay from the register. I watch from the other end as I close out tabs, noticing how she leans in to say something private, how his hand lingers on hers when she hands over the cash. He leaves with a wink and a 2-finger salute in my direction that makes my jaw clench. After last call, after the floors are mopped and the chairs are up, I sit down to count the night's take. The numbers are okay. Not great, but we'll make rent. I sort through receipts, matching them to the register tape, a habit from back when we could afford an accountant who cared about such things. That's when I find it, a receipt I don't recognize. Premium tequila, top-shelf stuff I rarely stock because it never sells in a place like this. 6 bottles at a price that makes my stomach clench. Dated last week, signed for by Liz. Not in our inventory, not in our storeroom, and definitely not in our bank account. I hold the paper between my fingers, feeling the edges cut into my skin. Outside, the neon sign flickers, bathing the empty bar in alternating darkness and sickly blue light. The receipt feels heavy in my hand, like it's made of something denser than paper. Like it's the first pebble in what might become an avalanche. Morning light filters through the dusty blinds of my office, carving stripes across the cluttered desk where I've been sitting since 6 a.m. My eyes burn from lack of sleep and too much staring at spreadsheets that refuse to make sense. The receipt from last night sits in front of me like a confession, corners curling in the humid air. My coffee went cold an hour ago, but I keep sipping it anyway, a bitter punishment for not seeing what's been happening right under my nose. The office is barely more than a glorified closet, just enough room for a metal desk, a filing cabinet with a broken lock, and a chair that groans like an old dog whenever I shift my weight. Concert posters from better days cover water stains on the walls. Stevie Ray, Willie Nelson, a few blues acts that passed through before hitting it big. The room smells of old paper, spilled beer that seeped through the floorboards from the bar above, and the faint ghost of cigarettes from before the smoking ban. I spread the ledgers across the desk, placing bank statements beside them like puzzle pieces that don't quite fit together. The numbers don't lie, even when people do. I've been tracking discrepancies for 3 weeks now, not obvious enough to notice at first glance, but a pattern emerges when you look hard enough. 200 missing here, inventory that doesn't match sales there. The expensive tequila receipt was just the latest, the most brazen. My finger traces down columns of faded ink, circling suspicious entries. A delivery of top-shelf whiskey we never received, extra payments to the beer distributor that the distributor has no record of. cash from the register that never made it to the bank. Small amounts usually, nothing that would sink us immediately, but enough to drain the life from a business already treading water in a sea of rising costs and trendy competition. $5,742. That's the total I've managed to identify so far. Nearly $6,000 gone in less than 2 months. My stomach tightens as I flip another page, finding an invoice for sound equipment we already own, paid in cash, signed by Liz. Another $1,500 I can add to the tally. At this rate, we'll be underwater before summer ends. The door creaks open without a knock. Liz stands in the doorway, looking fresher than anyone has a right to after closing the bar. Her hair is pulled back, makeup perfect, ready for the day while I'm still swimming in yesterday. "You're up early," she says, leaning against the doorframe. She's wearing the silver earrings I bought her 3 birthdays ago, back when we still celebrated such things. "Thought you'd sleep in after the late night?" "Couldn't sleep." I don't look up from the ledger. "Too many numbers not adding up." She sighs, the sound so familiar it might as well be the background music of our marriage. "Jack, not this again. We had a good night yesterday. Can't you just enjoy that for once? We had an okay night. We'd have had a better one if all the money made it into the register." I look up now, watching her face for a reaction, some crack in the perfect makeup. "Want to explain this?" I hold up the tequila receipt. She barely glances at it. "We needed to stock up for that private party next week. The tech company? I told you about it last month. 6 bottles of premium tequila they didn't specifically request, that we've never stocked before, at prices we can't afford." I keep my voice level, a skill learned from years of dealing with drunks who could turn mean at the wrong tone. "And what about this?" I hold up the sound equipment invoice. A flash of something, annoyance, maybe worry, crosses her face before she recovers. "The old speakers were crackling. Rick noticed it during his set and offered to pick up replacements at a discount through his connections. I was going to tell you, but you've been so stressed lately. Rick." The name sits between us like a loaded gun. "Seems like Rick has a lot of helpful suggestions these days." She crosses her arms. "Don't start, Jack. He's good for business. The crowds are better when he plays." "Marginally better. Not $1,500 worth of better." I shuffle through more papers. "And what about these distributor payments? Pete says they never received the extra cash." Then Pete's records are wrong. Or maybe it was Jasmine who handled it. You know she's new in their office. Liz pushes away from the doorframe, walks over to the small window, adjusts the blinds, like the light is the real problem here. Or maybe I put it under the wrong category. You know I'm not great with your ancient bookkeeping system. The system worked fine for 15 years. Well, maybe that's the problem. She turns to face me, arms still crossed. Everything here is stuck 15 years in the past. The system, the decor, the attitude. While every other bar in Austin is evolving, we're fossilizing. The words sting because there's just enough truth in them to draw blood. We're not talking about decor, Liz. We're talking about missing money. Nearly $8,000 in 2 months. That's impossible. But she doesn't look shocked, just irritated. You're making connections that aren't there. Maybe it's inventory shrinkage. Maybe it's that new bartender. What's his name, Justin? Maybe it's just your math. When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours? My math is fine. I stand up, feeling the desk between us like a barrier that goes deeper than wood. And you're not answering the question. Where is the money going? Nowhere. Jesus, Jack, listen to yourself. You sound paranoid. She throws up her hands. This is a cash business. There's always going to be some discrepancies. Drinks get spilled, inventory gets miscounted, receipts get lost. It happens. Not $8,000 worth of happens. I try to catch her eye, but she's looking everywhere but at me. Not unless someone's helping it happen. The accusation hangs in the air between us. Her jaw tightens, a muscle jumping in her cheek. I've spent 15 years of my life in this dive, Jack. 15 years serving watered-down drinks to the same sad faces telling the same sad stories. I've earned every penny I've ever taken from this place. That's not a denial. She stares at me, eyes flashing. I'm not going to dignify that with a response. When you decide to rejoin reality, maybe we can have an actual conversation. She turns to leave, then stops, one hand on the doorknob. And for the record, your precious bar was struggling long before Rick ever played his first chord here. Maybe instead of looking for someone to blame, you should look at what you've been doing wrong all these years. The door slams behind her, rattling the framed photos on the wall. One falls, glass cracking as it hits the floor. A picture from opening night, Liz and me behind the bar, arms around each other, smiling like we'd just discovered the secret to happiness. I sink back into my chair, listening to her footsteps fade up the stairs to our apartment above the bar. My hands are cold, but there's a heat in my chest, a burning that feels like equal parts anger and fear. I've spent 20 years building this place, pouring every dime and dream into these walls. I'm not going to watch it drain away without a fight. I reach for my phone, scroll through contacts until I find the number. I've never used it before, but Tony from the Horseshoe Lounge wouldn't stop singing the guy's praises after he caught a bartender running a tab-skimming scheme last year. Said he was discreet, thorough, and didn't charge an arm and a leg, 3 qualities I desperately need right now. The phone feels heavy in my hand as I press call. It rings 3 times before a gruff voice answers, "Riley Hunt." The voice sounds like whiskey poured over gravel. I don't say anything for a moment, suddenly uncertain. Then I think of the receipts, of Liz's laughter drifting down the bar, of Rick's hand lingering on hers. "Mr. Hunt," I say, my voice steadier than I feel. "My name is Jack Bennett. I own a bar in Austin, and I think my wife is stealing from me." The downtown parking lot sits half-empty under flickering streetlights that cast more shadows than illumination. I've been sitting in my truck for 20 minutes, engine off, radio silent, watching headlights sweep across the cracked concrete as cars turn onto Congress Avenue. It's nearly midnight, and the air coming through my open window carries the scent of rain that hasn't fallen yet, mixed with exhaust fumes and somebody's abandoned fast food. I check my watch again, though I know I'm early. Meeting a private detective to discuss your wife's potential betrayal isn't the kind of appointment you want to be late for. A sedan pulls in 3 spaces down, American-made, at least 10 years old, with a dent in the passenger door that catches the streetlight like a scar. The engine cuts off, but the driver doesn't emerge immediately. I watch in the rear view as he sits there, maybe checking me out, maybe just finishing a thought. Finally, the door opens, and a man unfolds himself from the driver's seat. Riley Hunt is taller than I expected, leaner too, with the careful way of moving that suggests he's nursing an old injury. He wears a jacket with too many pockets despite the warm night, his hair graying at the temples. As he approaches, I catch the glint of eyes that miss nothing, the kind of eyes that have seen the worst of people and decided to keep looking anyway. I step out of the truck, feeling oddly like I should be wearing something nicer than my faded bar t-shirt and jeans. We meet at the tailgate, neither of us offering a hand to shake. "Mr. Bennett." His voice matches the one on the phone, rough-edged but quieter in person. "Jack's fine." I shift my weight, suddenly unsure where to begin now that we're face to face. "Thanks for meeting so late." Hunt nods, glancing around the parking lot with practiced casualness. "Late's when the truth tends to come out." He turns those observant eyes back to me. "You said on the phone your wife might be stealing from your business." Want to tell me why you think that? I've rehearsed this conversation a dozen times today, but now the words stick in my throat. Saying it out loud makes it real in a way spreadsheets and receipts don't. I've got a bar, Bennett's, been running it for 20 years. I lean against the tailgate, needing the support. Last few months, money's been disappearing. Stock we paid for but never received, cash sales that never made it to the bank, equipment purchases for stuff we already own. Hunt doesn't react, just reaches into one of those many pockets and pulls out a small notebook. He flips it open, jots something down with a stubby pencil. "How much are we talking?" he asks, not looking up. "Around 8,000 that I can trace. Might be more I haven't found yet." I run a hand over my face, feeling the day's stubble. It's not just the money, there's this musician plays weekends at the bar. Rick Davis. Calls himself Strummer. The nickname tastes sour in my mouth. My wife, Liz, she's been spending a lot of time with him, laughing at his jokes, staying late to talk after his sets, and the financial problems started around when he showed up. Hunt nods, makes another note. "You have evidence of the missing funds?" I reach back into the truck cab, pull out a manila envelope. Copied everything I could find, bank statements, inventory records, receipts that don't match our stock, the works. Been tracking it in a separate ledger for a few weeks now. He takes the envelope, doesn't open it, just tucks it inside his jacket. "Tell me about your wife." The question catches me off guard. I was prepared to talk numbers, facts, not feelings. "What do you want to know? How long you been married?" 23 years. "Happy?" I almost laugh, but it would come out wrong. "Used to be. These days." I trail off, staring at a distant streetlight. We work together, live in the apartment above the bar. Too much togetherness, maybe not enough space. She says I'm stuck in the past, that the bar's dragging us down. Maybe she's right. The musician, Rick, what's his story? Drifter type, plays guitar, not bad, but nothing special. Been doing weekend gigs for about 2 months. Customers seem to like him well enough. I try to keep the bitterness out of my voice, but don't quite succeed. Liz hired him without really discussing it with me, said we needed to freshen up our sound. Hunt glances at his notebook, then back at me. "Any chance this is just about the business? Financial pressure, different ideas about running the place?" I wish I could say yes, that it's just a disagreement about inventory management or accounting practices. That would be simpler, cleaner somehow. I found an invoice for sound equipment, $1,500 worth, that we don't need and never received. Liz said Rick arranged it through his connections. And there's been moments, the way they talk together, laugh together, the way she looks at him. I swallow hard. I know how it sounds. Paranoid husband, younger guy, classic story. But the money's really missing. That part's not in my head. Hunt studies me for a long moment, his expression giving nothing away. Then he tucks the notebook away. "All right, here's how this works. I'll look into the financial side first, follow the paper trail, see where the money's going. Then I'll do some quiet surveillance, see if there's a pattern to their interactions. No one will know I'm watching. Not your wife, not the musician, not your staff. And what you find," I leave the question hanging, "I'll report only to you. What you do with the information is your business." He pauses. "My day rate is 300 plus expenses. I'll need 1,000 up front. That cover it?" I nod, reaching for my wallet. I've been carrying the cash all day, 10 hundreds folded tight. It's money we can't really spare, but less than what's already disappeared. I hand it over, feeling like I'm crossing a line I can never step back from. Hunt counts it quickly, tucks it away. "One more thing. You need to act normal. Don't change your routine, don't confront her, don't start checking her phone or following her yourself. The minute people know they're being watched, they change their behavior. I can do that. I'm not sure if it's true, but I'll try. Good. He pulls a plain business card from another pocket, hands it to me. Just his name and a phone number, nothing else. Call this number if anything significant happens. Otherwise, I'll contact you in a few days with a preliminary report. I take the card, feeling its weight between my fingers. So what now? Now you go home, act natural, and let me do my job. Hunt's eyes soften slightly, the first crack in his professional demeanor. And prepare yourself, Mr. Bennett. For what? For the possibility that it might be worse than you think. He says it without drama, just a simple statement of fact based on what I suspect is considerable experience. People rarely hire someone like me when things are going well, and in my experience, when you start pulling threads, you rarely find just one loose end. A car passes on the street beyond the lot, its headlights briefly illuminating Hunt's weathered face. In that moment, I see something in his eyes. Not pity exactly, but a kind of tired recognition, like he's seen my story play out 100 times before. I'll be in touch, he says, and turns to walk back to his car, shoulders straight, despite whatever old injury makes him favor his right leg slightly. I watch him drive away, the taillights receding down Congress Avenue until they're swallowed by the night. The manila envelope with copies of all my evidence is gone, carried away in one of Hunt's many pockets. Too late to take it back now, too late to pretend I don't know what I know. Thunder rumbles in the distance, a promise of the rain that's been threatening all day. I climb back into my truck, but don't start the engine right away. Instead, I sit in the darkness, listening to the first fat drops hit the windshield, wondering what will be left of my life when the truth finally breaks over it like the coming storm. I sip my third cup of watered-down coffee, nursing it like it's decent whiskey instead of bitter disappointment. Bennett's Bar and Grill spreads out before me. Wood-paneled walls soaking up the afternoon light, scarred tables waiting for the evening crowd, and the faint smell of last night's beer and broken dreams. I've spent 2 hours here already, watching, listening, becoming part of the furniture while I wait for Liz Bennett to make a mistake. The first rule of surveillance is patience. The second is invisibility. Not the actual disappearing kind, but the art of being so unremarkable that people's eyes slide right past you. I've perfected the look of a man with nowhere better to be, slightly rumpled jacket, 2-day stubble, a dog-eared paperback that I haven't turned a page of in 30 minutes. Just another middle-aged guy killing time before heading home to an empty apartment. Liz moves behind the bar with practiced efficiency, her smile bright, but her eyes calculating as she chats with the afternoon regulars. She's attractive in that hard-edged way that comes from years of deflecting drunks and managing disappointment. I can see why Jack fell for her, and maybe why he still holds on, despite the cracks in their foundation. "Need a refill, hun?" she asks, appearing at my table with a fresh pot. I smile. Not too much, just enough to be polite. "Thanks. Place gets busy around happy hour?" "Like clockwork." She tops off my cup. "You new around here?" "Just passing through. Old friend recommended this place for the music." I gesture vaguely at the small stage in the corner. "Said a guy named Rick plays here sometimes?" Something flickers behind her eyes. Interest? Caution? I can't quite tell. "Rick's on tonight. Starts at 8 if you want to stick around." "Might do that," I say, giving her the careful smile of a man who's harmless, forgettable. She moves on to the next table, and I check my watch. The timing has to be perfect. According to Jack, Liz does inventory and paperwork between 4 and 5, usually stepping out to take deliveries around 4:30. The back office door is visible from my table, left ajar as she works inside. At 4:25, the delivery truck pulls up right on schedule. The driver calls through the door, and Liz emerges from the office, annoyance pinching her features. "Early again," she mutters, loud enough for me to hear. "Give me a minute." She follows the driver outside, clipboard in hand. I wait 3 heartbeats, then move. Years of working investigations have taught me to walk with purpose, not rushing, just a man who knows where he's going. No one gives me a second glance as I slip behind the bar and into the cramped office. The room is exactly as Jack described it. Metal desk cluttered with invoices, filing cabinet with a broken lock, faded concert posters covering water stains. I pull the recording device from my pocket, smaller than a pack of cigarettes, inconspicuous as a power bank. Finding the right spot takes 4 precious seconds. Behind the filing cabinet, wedged where the metal meets the wall, nearly invisible unless you're looking for it. The microphone can pick up conversations from across the room. Footsteps approach. I slide a business card under the desk blotter, just another supplier leaving contact information, and step back into the hallway, ducking into the men's room as Liz returns. In the grimy mirror, I straighten my jacket, nodding at my reflection. The device is in place. Now comes the waiting. By 7:30, the bar has filled with the Thursday night crowd, a mix of regulars, college kids slumming it, and workers stopping in for a cold one before heading home. I've switched from coffee to beer, still nursing each bottle like it's my first. The older bartender, Maggie, Jack called her, keeps the drinks flowing with quiet efficiency. There's something in her eyes when she looks at Liz. Suspicion, maybe, or resignation. She knows something's off but keeps her head down, does her job. At 8 sharp, Rick Davis makes his entrance, guitar case in hand, confidence in his stride. He's younger than I expected, maybe late 30s, with the practiced charm of a man who's gotten by on his smile for too long. Tattoos peek out from beneath his leather jacket, and his hair is just disheveled enough to look intentional. Liz's entire demeanor changes when he walks in. Her posture straightens, her smile widens, her eyes light up with something that isn't just professional courtesy. She greets him with a touch on the arm that lingers 2 seconds too long. I adjust my position at the bar, close enough to observe, but not so close as to draw attention. My phone sits on the counter, camera app open, but screen dark, ready when I need it. Rick sets up quickly, running through a sound check while exchanging glances with Liz across the room. There's a language between them made of small gestures and knowing looks, the shorthand of either lovers or conspirators. Maybe both. He plays his first set. Passable guitar work, mediocre vocals, heavy on the blues covers. The crowd seems to enjoy it well enough, though I notice Maggie watching him with thinly veiled disdain as she serves drinks. Between songs, he makes eye contact with Liz, little private jokes passing between them as if they're the only ones in on the secret. During his break, Rick makes his way to the bar, where Liz has a whiskey waiting before he even asks. They lean close, voices low, shoulders touching. From my angle, I can see him slip an envelope from his jacket, passing it to her beneath the bar top. Her fingers close around it quickly, tucking it into her apron pocket. "Looks good," I hear him say, voice just loud enough to catch. "My friend says the paperwork will go through soon. Maybe 2 weeks, tops." Liz nods, glancing around before responding. "The sooner the better. I can't keep this up much longer. He's getting suspicious about the money." "Just a little longer, baby." Rick's hand brushes hers. "Once the transfer is complete, we're in the clear. No more hiding, no more nickel and diming it out." "And the equipment?" "Already lined up a buyer. We'll clear at least 20 grand after we strip this place." My fingers tighten around my beer bottle. Strip this place. The words confirm what Jack feared. This isn't just about skimming cash or an affair. They're planning to gut his business, his life's work. Liz looks toward the office, then back at Rick. I've got the inventory list in the back. Shows everything we can liquidate once it's done. Let me see, he says, and they move toward the office, weaving through the crowd. I give them 30 seconds, then follow, keeping my distance. The hallway to the office is dark, lit only by the exit sign's red glow. I stay in the shadows, my phone ready. Through the partially open door, I see Liz pull a document from a file drawer, spreading it on the desk. Rick leans over her shoulder, his hand resting possessively on her waist as they review the paper. This is gold, he says, tapping the page. Everything's here. Equipment, stock, suppliers. We can have it all cleared out in a weekend. Just make sure your buyer's ready. I want this done fast, clean. Trust me, baby. 2 weeks from now, we'll be celebrating in style. She turns, passes him the document. Make a copy, then bring it back tomorrow. Don't lose it. The moment freezes in perfect clarity. Liz handing over the paper, Rick taking it with the smug confidence of a man who thinks he's won, the document that outlines the dismantling of Jack Bennett's life passing between them. My phone makes no sound as I capture the image, evidence preserved in digital amber. I fade back into the shadows as they seal their conspiracy with a kiss that holds no love, only the promise of profit built on another man's ruin. The law offices of Grayson, Miller, and Associates occupies the 3rd floor of a downtown building that can't decide if it's trying to look important or just expensive. I adjust my tie, a rare accessory in my line of work, and check my reflection in the brass elevator doors. Today, I'm not Riley Hunt, private investigator with bad knees and worse sleeping habits. Today, I'm Riley Hunt, financial consultant to Jack Bennett, concerned about some paperwork irregularities. Amazing how a tie and a leather portfolio can transform a man from suspicious to respectable in the eyes of a front desk receptionist. The elevator deposits me into a reception area, where everything is beige and gray, like their afraid color might suggest personality, or worse, affordability. The receptionist sits behind a desk the size of a small boat, her phone headset a permanent fixture beside immaculately highlighted hair. She wears the practiced smile of someone who's mastered the art of making you feel simultaneously welcome and evaluated. Good afternoon. I have an appointment with Ms. Keller. I lie smoothly, having confirmed through a preliminary call that the attorney handling business transfers would be out of the office this afternoon. A shame, really. Her fingers click across her keyboard. I don't see an appointment. It might be under Bennett? Jack Bennett's bar? I frown, the perfect picture of mild confusion. Ms. Keller was handling some ownership documents. I'm his financial consultant. The receptionist's brow furrows. Ms. Keller is in court until 4, but her paralegal, Ms. Donovan, is here. Would you like to speak with her? That would be perfect. Thank you. Sometimes the universe hands you exactly what you need. In this case, a junior staff member instead of the lawyer who might ask too many questions. 5 minutes later, I'm seated across from a young woman in a small conference room. Amber Donovan has the harried look of someone perpetually overworked and underpaid, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, her navy pantsuit a size too large, as if she'd bought it anticipating future success. 3 coffee cups litter her desk, and a half-eaten protein bar sits forgotten beside a stack of files. Mr. Hunt, how can I help you? Ms. Keller didn't mention a consultant on the Bennett file. Her tone is professional but rushed. I open my portfolio, pulling out a business card that identifies me as a financial consultant, one of many identities I maintain for situations just like this. Jack Bennett asked me to review all paperwork related to his bar before anything is finalized. He's been having some concerns about the process. Concerns? She frowns, reaching for a thick folder on her desk. That's odd. His wife assured us everything was proceeding with his full knowledge and consent. His wife? I raise an eyebrow as if this is news to me. Yes, Mrs. Bennet has been handling most of the paperwork. She said Mr. Bennet was too busy with the day-to-day operations to come in himself. She flips through the folder. She's been very eager to complete the transfer as quickly as possible. I see. I lean forward slightly. And what exactly is being transferred? Ms. Donovan gives me a slightly puzzled look. The ownership of Bennett's Bar and Grill, of course, from joint ownership to sole proprietorship under Elizabeth Bennet, with provisions for immediate sale to a third party once the transfer is complete. The pieces click into place, not just stealing from the bar, but stealing the bar itself. And Jack Bennet signed off on all this? Yes, we have his signatures on all the required documents. She pulls out several papers, turning them to face me. Here and here. I examine the signatures carefully. After 20 years of investigating cheating spouses and insurance fraud, I've developed an eye for forgeries. These aren't even particularly good ones. The strokes are hesitant, trying too hard to mimic Jack's natural scrawl. When was Mr. Bennet in to sign these? She checks her notes. He wasn't, actually. Mrs. Bennet brought them in already signed. Said he was too busy to come downtown. I see. I nod thoughtfully. And the third-party buyer? Do you have that information? Ms. Donovan hesitates, professional caution finally kicking in. I'm not sure I should be sharing all this without Ms. Keller's approval. Are you formally representing Mr. Bennet? I pull out another document, a generic authorization form with Jack's genuine signature that he provided before I started this investigation. I am. Mr. Bennet authorized me to review all his business affairs. She studies the document, compares the signature to the ones on her paperwork, and frowns. These signatures, they don't look quite the same. That's one of his concerns, I say, letting her reach the conclusion on her own. Her eyes widen slightly. Oh, I see. She looks back at the folder, then at me, the implications slowly dawning. But Mrs. Bennet said, "People say a lot of things, Ms. Donovan." My voice is gentle but firm, especially when there's money involved. She swallows hard, the conflict playing across her face, professional ethics versus the realization she might have been unwittingly involved in fraud. The transfer is scheduled to be finalized next Thursday. Mrs. Bennet has been calling daily to check on the progress. Next Thursday, just under 2 weeks, exactly as Rick had mentioned in the bar. And after the transfer? There's already paperwork prepared for an immediate sale to an LLC called Strummer Enterprises. The deposit has been placed in escrow. Strummer, Rick's stage name. Not even clever enough to use a different alias. Ms. Donovan, I need copies of all these documents. Jack Bennet needs to see exactly what's being done in his name. She hesitates again. I should really check with Ms. Keller. By all means. But consider this. If what I'm suggesting is true, and Mrs. Bennet has forged her husband's signature, you and this firm could be facilitating fraud. I let that sink in. I'm trying to resolve this quietly, before it becomes a matter for the police. The word police works its magic. No law firm wants that kind of publicity. She nods, gathering the papers. I'll make copies, but I'll need to inform Ms. Keller immediately. Of course, I'd expect nothing less. I give her my most reassuring smile, and I'll need a receipt showing exactly what documents I've taken copies of for the record. 10 minutes later, I'm walking out with a folder containing everything I need. Transfer of ownership documents, sale agreements, even bank details for where the money would be wired upon completion. The paralegal's business card is tucked inside, along with her direct line. She'll be calling her boss in a panic the moment I leave, but it doesn't matter. I have what I need. In the elevator, I examine the forged signatures more carefully. Liz didn't even try very hard, confident, perhaps, that no one would look too closely at paperwork brought in by a trusted spouse. It's the arrogance that always trips them up, the belief that they're too smart to get caught. The elevator doors open, releasing me into the lobby. Outside, the late afternoon sun slants between buildings, turning the street into alternating strips of light and shadow. I loosen my tie, transforming back into the rumpled investigator as I walk to my car. In my hand, I hold the evidence of a betrayal more complete than Jack Bennett imagined. Not just stealing from the business, not just an affair, but a conspiracy to take everything, to erase 20 years of work like it meant nothing. By this time next week, Jack would have been left with empty pockets and an empty building, his life's work sold out from under him while he was still counting the register. I slide the documents into my glove compartment and start the engine. Time to deliver the bad news, and maybe, just maybe, a chance to stop it before it's too late. The storeroom smells of dust and liquor, illuminated only by a single bulb that casts more shadows than it banishes. Jack sits on an overturned beer crate, his shoulders hunched forward like they're carrying the weight of what I'm about to tell him. Maggie leans against the shelves, arms crossed, worry etched into the lines around her eyes. It's nearly 2 a.m., the bar closed and locked, the only sounds the distant hum of the refrigerator unit and the occasional car passing on the street outside. Nobody talks as I lay out the manila folder on a stack of boxes, spreading the evidence of betrayal like tarot cards, promising a future nobody wants to see. "It's worse than you thought," I begin, my voice low even though we're alone. Old habits. "They're not just stealing from the bar. They're stealing the bar itself." Jack's eyes, bloodshot from lack of sleep or maybe a few quiet drinks after closing, move from my face to the documents. "What do you mean?" I place the ownership transfer papers in front of him. "Liz has been meeting with lawyers to transfer the business from joint ownership to her name only. Once that's done, she's selling it immediately to an LLC called Strummer Enterprises." "Strummer?" Jack's voice is hollow. "Rick's stage name." "Yeah, not exactly criminal masterminds." I point to the signatures. "She forged your name on all the paperwork. The transfer is set to complete next Thursday." Jack picks up the document, his hands steady but his knuckles white with tension. "That's my signature, but not quite right. How did no one catch this? People see what they expect to see. Wife comes in with papers her husband supposedly signed. Why question it?" I pull out my phone, cue up the audio recording. "I planted a device in your office. Listen." I play the recording of Liz and Rick's conversation. Their voices fill the small storeroom, tinny through the phone's speaker, but clear enough. "Once the transfer is complete, we're in the clear. No more hiding, no more nickel and diming it out. And the equipment? Already lined up a buyer. We'll clear at least 20 grand after we strip this place." Jack's face hardens with each word, a muscle jumping in his jaw. Beside him, Maggie lets out a soft sound, part gasp, part curse. "I knew something was off," she says, shaking her head. "The way they'd shut up when I came around, how she'd stay late with him after his sets." She reaches out, puts a hand on Jack's shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Jack." He doesn't respond, just stares at the papers in front of him. I pull out the photographs next, Liz passing Rick the inventory document, their heads bent together over the desk, the kiss in the darkened office. "There's more," I continue. "They've been systematically draining cash for at least 2 months, based on your records. The equipment purchases, the missing inventory, it was all prep work, getting what they could before the big take. The bar itself is worth more, but they couldn't resist skimming while they waited for the paperwork." "How much?" Jack's voice is barely audible. "From what I've pieced together, about 12,000. The tequila receipts you found were just the tip. They've been creating fake invoices, double-charging the bar account, pocketing the difference." Jack stands suddenly, paces the narrow space between shelves. His fists clench and unclench at his sides. 23 years, he says, more to himself than to us. 23 years of marriage, 20 years in this bar, and she was going to take it all, just walk away with everything. Maggie watches him, her face a study in controlled fury. "What do we do?" she asks, looking between us. "Call the cops?" I shake my head. Might not be the best first move. It's her word against his on some of this. The forgery, sure, that's clear-cut, but these kinds of cases get messy fast, especially with spouses, joint accounts, shared property. So what then? Jack turns to me, eyes burning with a dangerous mix of pain and anger. I just let her get away with it? No. I gather the documents, organizing them with the precision of someone who's built cases before. We confront them, but smart, with all the evidence laid out. No room for denials or explanations. When? Tomorrow night. Rick's playing, right? They'll both be here. We do it after closing when it's just the four of us. And then what? Maggie asks. First things first, I say. Jack, you need to freeze the business accounts immediately. Call the bank first thing in the morning. Tell them you suspect fraud. That buys us time, stops them from draining anything else before the confrontation. Jack nods, some of the raw emotion giving way to determined focus. Done. What else? We need to secure any important documents they don't already have. The real deed to the property, original business license, anything they might need to complete the transfer. Lock them somewhere off-site. I've got a safety deposit box, Maggie offers. Been paying for it for years, barely use it. We can put everything there. Jack gives her a grateful look. You don't have to get involved in this, Mag. It could get ugly. She straightens up, chin lifting with defiance. I've been here 12 years, Jack Bennett. This place is as much home to me as it is to you, and nobody steals from family. Her voice catches slightly on the last word, revealing more than perhaps she intended. I continue outlining the plan. We'll need copies of everything, the forged documents, the recordings, the photos. One set for confronting them, one set for the police if it comes to that. When they arrive tomorrow, we act normal. Let them think nothing's changed. I don't know if I can look at her without... Jack trails off. You can, I tell him firmly. For 24 hours you can. Because if they suspect we're onto them, they might accelerate their plans or destroy evidence. Maggie moves to stand beside Jack, her presence steady and grounding. We'll help you through it. I'll run interference when you need a break. I check my watch. The bank opens at 9. Be there when they unlock the doors. Tell them it's an emergency, that you suspect fraud on your accounts. They can place a temporary hold while they investigate. Jack runs a hand over his face, looking suddenly older in the harsh light. 20 years in this place. Every dollar I ever made went into these walls. His voice is quiet but steady. I was ready to face that she might be cheating. Wasn't prepared for her trying to erase me completely. The silence that follows feels heavy, laden with the weight of betrayal. Finally, I speak. When we confront them, you need to stay calm. No matter what they say, no matter how they try to justify it, the evidence speaks for itself. Let it do the talking. What if they deny everything? Try to talk their way out? Maggie asks. They will, I answer, having seen this play out dozens of times before. They'll say it's a misunderstanding, that Jack knew about it, that they were going to surprise him with some of the money. People always think they can talk their way out of evidence this solid. Don't get pulled into the argument. Jack nods, determination hardening his features. I won't. I just want to see their faces when they realize it's over. I gather the documents, return them to the folder. Get some sleep if you can. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. None of us move immediately. The plan is set, the evidence compiled, but the reality of what's coming hangs in the air between us. The confrontation that will end a marriage, the accusations that will shatter any pretense of loyalty, the aftermath that Jack will have to rebuild from. "I'll be here," I assure him, tucking the folder inside my jacket. Every step, as we finally move toward the door, the tension travels with us, an invisible current running beneath our careful movements. Through the storeroom window, I catch a glimpse of the bar beyond, the gleaming bottles, the scarred wooden countertop, the faded posters on the walls. All of it built by Jack's hands, all of it nearly stolen by the woman who once stood beside him as he built it. Some betrayals cut deeper than others. Tomorrow we'll see just how deep this one goes. The bar sits silent and dark, like a confessional after the sinners have gone home. Only the security lights cast a dim glow across the empty tables, turning familiar corners into hiding places for shadows. Jack and I wait behind the storeroom door, our breathing measured, our patience worn thin by the day's anticipation. The evidence folder sits heavy in my inside pocket, a weight I've carried all day while watching Jack maintain a performance worthy of better stages. Smiling at the woman who plotted to erase him, serving drinks to the man who aimed to replace him. "She'll go for the safe first," Jack whispers, his voice barely audible over the building's settling creaks. "Always does after a big night. Says she's double-checking the day's take." I nod, checking my watch. 2:17, right on schedule according to Jack's prediction. "You did good today," I tell him. "Oscar-worthy." His laugh holds no humor. "Wasn't acting, was saying goodbye." We hear the back door open, then close with a soft click. Voices drift toward us, Liz's throaty laugh, Rick's lower murmur. Jack's hands curl into fists, then slowly unfold as he masters himself. Beside us, hidden in the shadows of the linen closet, Maggie stands ready, her face set in the determined expression of someone who's chosen sides and made peace with the decision. The office door groans open across the hall. Footsteps, then the sound of a chair scraping back. "Hurry up!" Rick's voice impatient. "Get the papers and whatever cash is in there. We need to be out before sunrise." "Don't rush me," Liz snaps back. "This safe is temperamental, always has been." Jack nods at me. It's time. We move silently across the hall, Maggie following a few steps behind. I push the office door wide open, flooding the small space with our presence. Liz kneels before the old floor safe, dial caught between her fingers, hair falling across her face. Rick leans against the desk, a duffel bag open at his feet. Their heads snap up in unison, the synchronized movement of conspirators caught in the act. For one frozen moment, nobody speaks. Then Rick recovers, his face arranging itself into a smile that doesn't reach his eyes. "Jack, man, didn't expect to see you here this late." He straightens, hands spread in practiced innocence. "Liz forgot some paperwork, asked if I'd help her grab it. At 2 in the morning?" Jack's voice is oddly calm, almost conversational. "Must be some important paperwork." Liz rises slowly from the safe, smoothing her skirt with hands that aren't quite steady. "What's going on, Jack? Why are you hiding in the dark like some kind of—" She trails off as she notices me standing beside her husband. Recognition flickers across her face. "The coffee guy. You've been watching us." "Riley Hunt," I introduce myself properly. "Private investigator, hired by your husband when he noticed money disappearing faster than beer on Dollar Night." Rick's smile falters. His eyes dart toward the door, measuring the distance, calculating odds. I shift slightly to block his path. "I wouldn't," I advise quietly. "Makes everything worse." "Jack, this is ridiculous." Liz finds her voice, indignation rising to cover fear. "You hired someone to spy on me? Your own wife?" "Not just spy," Jack says, reaching toward me. I hand him the folder. "To gather evidence." He opens it, begins laying out the documents one by one on the desk beside Rick. Forged transfer of ownership papers. My signature. Not quite right, but close enough to fool someone who wasn't looking too carefully. Another document. Sale agreement to Strummer Enterprises. That's you, isn't it, Rick? Not very creative. Rick's face hardens. You don't understand. This place is dying, man. Has been for years. Liz and I were going to revitalize it, bring in new blood, new music. After stealing it from me? Jack's voice finally cracks, the calm facade slipping. After taking my life's work? It was my life, too. Liz steps forward, color rising in her cheeks. 20 years in this place, watching it slowly sink while you refuse to change anything. The same drinks, the same music, the same sad faces every night. So you decided to steal it instead of talking to me? Instead of asking for a divorce like a normal person? I move to the desk, continue laying out evidence while they argue. The photographs of them plotting in this very office. Bank statements showing withdrawals that never made it to vendors. The inventory of everything they planned to liquidate once the transfer was complete. We have audio recordings, I interrupt their back and forth, of you two discussing how to strip this place once the transfer was complete, planning to clear out at least 20 grand after you gutted the business. Rick's eyes narrow, focusing on me now. You bugged the office? That's illegal. Inadmissible. In court, maybe. I shrug. But we're not in court yet. Right now, we're just having a conversation among friends about some very suspicious paperwork and missing money. Liz turns to Jack, switching tactics. Her voice softens, becomes the voice of the woman he married rather than the one who planned to betray him. Jack, please. It wasn't like that. I was unhappy, yes, frustrated with how things were going. Rick suggested the transfer as a way to protect the business in case things didn't work out between us. That's why you forged my signature? Jack asks, his tone making it clear he's not buying it. That's why you've been stealing inventory for months? I wasn't stealing, she insists. I was reallocating for improvements. Improvements like Rick's new guitar? Maggie speaks for the first time, stepping forward. Or the cash I saw you slip him after his sets. Don't bother denying it, Liz. I've watched you two for months. Liz's eyes widen, then narrow as she looks at Maggie. Of course you'd take his side. You've been waiting for this chance for years, haven't you? Pathetic. Rick moves suddenly, grabbing for the folder. This is bullshit. You can't prove anything. It's your word against ours. I catch his wrist before he reaches the documents. I wouldn't do that either. The sound of the front door opening freezes everyone in place. Heavy footsteps approach. Too many for a late-night customer, too measured for a drunk seeking after-hours service. That would be the police, I explain conversationally. Officer Dan Riley, no relation, is an old friend. Been waiting outside while we had our chat. Two uniformed officers appear in the doorway, Dan Riley's solid presence filling the frame. Everything okay in here, Hunt? I nod. Just wrapping up. Mr. Davis here was about to explain how he came to be involved in forgery, fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. Rick's face drains of color. His eyes dart to Liz, then back to the officers. This is a misunderstanding. I was just helping Liz with some paperwork. The transfer was her idea. And there it is, the moment when loyalty dissolves, when partners in crime become each other's prosecutors. I've seen it 100 times, but it never loses its tragic predictability. That's a lie! Liz turns on him, betrayal sharp in her voice. You came to me with the whole plan. You said we could make a fresh start, that your connections could turn this place around. Officer Riley steps forward, pulls out handcuffs. Richard Davis, you're under arrest for attempted fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and forgery. You have the right to remain silent. As Riley continues reading rights, Rick's shoulders slump in defeat. His eyes find Liz one last time, conveying a silent message that might be apology or might be blame. Impossible to tell in the dim light and heightened emotion. "What about her?" Jack asks quietly as Riley cuffs Rick. "She was part of this too." Dan Riley looks at me, then at Jack. "One step at a time. We'll take his statement first, see where that leads. You'll need to come down to the station tomorrow, both of you, to give formal statements." As they lead Rick out, Liz stands motionless in the center of the room, suddenly looking smaller without him beside her. Her eyes move from the evidence on the desk to Jack's face, searching for something. Mercy, perhaps, or at least understanding. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," she says finally. "We were going to send you money after once we got established somewhere else." Jack just looks at her, the weight of 23 years hanging between them. "Get out," he says quietly. "Pack your things and be gone by morning. Whatever happens legally happens, but I don't want to see your face in my bar again." She opens her mouth as if to argue, then closes it. Without another word, she turns and walks out, her footsteps fading down the hall like the last notes of a song nobody wanted to hear. I gather the evidence back into the folder, suddenly feeling like an intruder in the aftermath of a disaster I helped create. Necessary, yes. Just, certainly. But in moments like these, justice tastes more bitter than sweet. The neon beer signs glow brighter tonight somehow, casting their familiar blues and reds across faces that wear relief like a new cologne. 1 week since the confrontation, 1 week since Rick Davis was led away in handcuffs, 1 week since Liz disappeared with 2 suitcases and whatever remained of her conscience. I sit at the end of the bar, nursing a whiskey Jack insists I'm not paying for, watching him move among his customers with a lightness that wasn't there before. The burden of suspicion has lifted, replaced by the steadier weight of rebuilding. "Fraud charges are sticking," Jack tells me, sliding another whiskey across the bar before I finish the first. "DA says the forgery alone is enough to put Rick away for a while, not to mention the conspiracy charges." I nod, watching ice melt in my glass. "And Liz?" His face tightens momentarily, then relaxes with effort. "Cooperating, apparently. Turned on Rick the moment they separated them for questioning. Claims he masterminded everything, that she was under his influence." Jack's fingers make air quotes around the words, his disbelief evident. "She'll probably get probation, community service. Her lawyer's spinning it as a domestic situation gone wrong. That sound right to you?" He considers the question, wiping down the bar with slow, deliberate strokes. "No, but I'm not sure I care anymore. The bar's safe. The accounts are restored. She's gone." He shrugs, a gesture that carries more resignation than bitterness. "Sometimes you have to settle for getting most of what matters back." The door swings open, admitting a gust of evening air and 3 men in work clothes, regulars whose names I've learned over the past week. Dan, the electrician, whose hands are permanently stained with copper. Bobby, with the laugh that starts silent and ends like a backfiring truck. And a third whose name escapes me, but whose hat never leaves his head, even indoors. They greet Jack with nods that carry more weight than casual acknowledgement. "Bennett," Dan says, settling onto a stool. "Usual lineup?" Jack's smile reaches his eyes, something I've noticed happening more frequently as the days pass. Coming right up, as he pours their beers, more customers filter in, a couple in their 50s who head straight for their booth in the corner, a group of younger women who might be graduate students from the university, a man who carries a battered leather portfolio and sits alone, sketching on napkins. For a Wednesday, the place is filling up nicely. "Never this busy midweek," Jack comments as he returns to my end of the bar. "Not since the early days. Word gets around," I tell him. Community rallies when someone tries to steal a piece of it. He pauses, glancing around at the gathered faces. That what this is? Support? That's exactly what it is. I raise my glass slightly. People take care of their own, Jack. And like it or not, this bar is part of them now. His eyes meet mine, understanding slowly dawning. Maggie told them. Course she did. I nod toward where she moves between tables, refilling drinks, her efficiency undiminished by the increased volume. She knows what this place means to everyone, what you mean to them. Jack watches her for a long moment, something shifting in his expression. She's been here through everything, never wavers, never complains, just steady. Some people are like that, I observe. The ones worth keeping usually are. He turns back to me, eyes narrowing slightly. You're not subtle, Hunt. Never claimed to be. I finish my whiskey, enjoying the burn. Just observant. The night progresses, the bar filling with more familiar faces. Someone feeds the jukebox, and Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitar fills the spaces between conversations. Jack moves between customers, pouring drinks, exchanging words, accepting handshakes and occasional embraces from people who've heard what happened. The story has spread, simplified, mythologized perhaps, but essentially true. The owner's wife and a musician tried to steal the bar, but Jack fought back and won. I watch it all from my corner, seeing the pieces of a life reassembling themselves around the man who refused to let it be taken from him. There's a satisfaction in this part of the job that no payment can match. Witnessing the aftermath, the healing that follows the cut. You saved my life's work, Jack says, returning to lean against the bar beside me. Don't know how I'll ever repay that. You already did. I gesture toward the crowd. Watching you keep this place going is payment enough. I don't get many happy endings in my line of work, Jack. Most of the time, I just confirm people's worst suspicions, hand them evidence of betrayal, and walk away. And now I get to see something saved instead of lost. Makes a nice change. The night winds down eventually. The regulars depart with promises to return Friday. The graduate students leave giggling over something written on a napkin. The sketching man folds his drawings carefully into his portfolio. Jack begins the closing routine, wiping tables, stacking chairs, counting the register. Maggie moves around him in a dance they've perfected over years, their orbits synchronized without conscious thought. I stand to leave, sensing they need this time alone. Think I'll call it a night. Jack looks up, surprise crossing his features. You sure? Thought you might stay for a nightcap. Another time. I shrug into my jacket. Some conversations are better had without an audience. His eyes follow mine to where Maggie counts bottles behind the bar, and understanding dawns. He nods slowly. Thanks, Riley, for everything. Just doing my job. I leave a generous tip under my glass, more for Maggie than for the drinks. Call if you need anything else. Outside, I pause on the sidewalk, looking back through the window. Jack has moved behind the bar, saying something that makes Maggie look up from her inventory clipboard. I can't hear the words, but I see the way her face changes, opening like a flower, turning toward unexpected sunlight. I walk to my car, leaving them to whatever words they're finally ready to share. The night air carries the promise of rain, but for once it feels cleansing rather than threatening. Through the window, I see Maggie set down her clipboard. Her voice doesn't carry through the glass, but I can read the words on her lips as she finally speaks the truth she's held for years. I've loved you since the first day I walked in here, Jack Bennett. Loved this place because you loved it. Stayed because leaving would have meant not seeing you every day. His response is hidden from me as he turns away from the window, but I see him reach for her hand across the bar. Their fingers touch, and even from this distance, I can see the jolt that passes between them. Not just static from the dry air, but recognition of something that's been there all along, waiting for its moment. I drive away as the first raindrops hit my windshield, leaving them to discover what comes after survival. The cautious joy of beginning again with someone who never left your side in the first place. The rusty nail lives up to its name. Tetanus in neon with a clientele to match. I'm here on another case, following a husband whose weekend fishing trips smell more like perfume than bait. But my attention drifts from my target to a familiar figure moving between tables. Her auburn hair has lost its shine, pulled back in a hasty ponytail instead of the careful waves I remember. Liz Bennett, now just Liz, I suppose, balances a tray of sticky beer bottles, her once confident stride reduced to the hurried shuffle of minimum wage and maximum humiliation. 3 months since the night her plan collapsed, and the fall from bar owner's wife to dive bar waitress has left marks no makeup can cover. I slide into a corner booth, positioning myself where the shadows offer discretion, but the sightlines remain clear. My current subject sits at the bar, already deep in conversation with a woman in a sequined top that catches the light like a distress signal. Case closed, I suppose. I'll deliver the photos tomorrow, collect my fee, and add another divorce to the statistics that keep my rent paid. But it's Liz who holds my attention now. She moves differently here, shoulders hunched slightly, eyes down, a forced smile that appears and disappears like a faulty light bulb. When she leans to take an order, a man's hand brushes against her hip. She flinches but doesn't object. The distance between her past and present measured in unwanted touches she can no longer afford to refuse. The rusty nail sits on the wrong side of Austin's gentrification line, too far east to benefit from the tech money, too run down to attract the hipsters looking for authentic experiences. The floor sticks with spilled beer that never quite gets mopped. The bathroom's perpetually out of order, the jukebox stocked with songs that were already tired when they were released. Compared to Bennett's carefully cultivated atmosphere, this place is a cautionary tale. On a small stage in the corner, a band sets up equipment. 3 guys in their 20s with identical beards and flannel shirts, arranging pedals and adjusting microphones with the self-importance of artists performing at Carnegie Hall instead of a Tuesday night dive bar. Liz watches them from the service station, something like longing crossing her face as the guitarist tunes up. I wonder if she's thinking of Rick, of chances missed, of the future she gambled and lost. Word around town is that Rick Davis took a plea deal. 18 months for the forgery and fraud charges, with the conspiracy charges dropped in exchange for his testimony against the person he claimed was the mastermind, Liz. The betrayal complete, the partnership dissolved with the same casual cruelty with which it began. Jack Bennett refused to press additional charges against his wife, a mercy she likely doesn't understand, settling instead for a divorce that left her with nothing but the clothes she packed that night and whatever cash she'd managed to hide away. Liz approaches my table, order pad in hand, eyes not quite focusing on my face. "What can I get you?" The professional smile falters as recognition dawns. "You." I nod, not bothering to feign surprise at our meeting. "Just a whiskey. Neat." She doesn't move, the order pad clutched in suddenly white-knuckled fingers. "Come to gloat? Not my style." I gesture to the chair across from me. "You can sit a minute. Place isn't exactly jumping." Hesitation crosses her face, followed by resignation. She slides into the seat, setting the order pad on the sticky table. Up close, the changes are more evident. Fine lines around her eyes that weren't there 3 months ago. A hollowness in her cheeks, the cheap polyester uniform that hangs on her frame like borrowed clothes. "How's Jack?" she asks, her voice carefully neutral. "Doing well. Bar's picking up business. Brought in a new weekend act, jazz quartet, older crowd, better tips. I study her reaction. He and Maggie are seeing each other now. Something flickers across her face. Not jealousy exactly, but the recognition of a door permanently closed. Good for them, she says, not quite managing sincerity. She always had a thing for him. You knew. Course I knew. Her laugh is brittle, like glass on the verge of shattering. Hard to miss the way she looked at him. Used to feel sorry for her. The band starts a sound check, the guitarist running through chords that echo hollowly in the half-empty room. Liz's eyes drift toward the stage, then away quickly, as if the sight burns. Rick got 18 months, I say, though I suspect she already knows. Could have been worse. For him, maybe. Her fingers trace patterns in a puddle of condensation on the table. I got probation, community service, and this. She gestures vaguely at her surroundings. Turns out nobody wants to hire a convicted fraudster with no references and a famous case. This was the only place that didn't bother with a background check. I don't offer sympathy. We both know it wouldn't be genuine. Why'd you do it, Liz? 23 years of marriage, a stable business. Why risk it all? She's quiet so long, I think she won't answer. When she finally speaks, her voice carries the weight of sleepless nights spent asking herself the same question. I got tired of waiting for something to change, for Jack to change, for the bar to change, for my life to be something other than the same walls, the same people, the same conversations year after year. Her eyes meet mine, defiance mixing with something that might be regret. Rick made me feel like there was something else out there, something better. And was there? The question hangs between us as the band launches into their first song. A mediocre cover of a blues standard I've heard performed infinitely better at Bennett's. Liz flinches at a wrong note. There was Rick, she says finally, until there wasn't. A man at a nearby table waves impatiently, pointing at his empty glass. Liz straightens, the momentary vulnerability sliding behind a practiced mask of indifference. I should get back to work, she says, standing. Boss doesn't like us socializing. The whiskey? On me. A ghost of her old smile appears, then vanishes. For old times' sake. I watch her walk away, moving between tables with the resigned efficiency of someone who knows this is as good as it gets now. The life she tried to steal slips further away with each drink order, each rejected advance, each night ending with counting out meager tips in a bathroom stall because she doesn't trust her co-workers. The future she gambled everything for disappeared the moment Rick Davis decided she was worth less than his freedom. When my whiskey arrives, bottom shelf, watered down, it's delivered by another server. Liz has moved to the far side of the room, her back to me, as she serves a table of rowdy college kids who won't tip enough to justify their demands. On stage, the band butchers another song, the guitarist posturing with the unearned confidence of someone who hasn't yet learned the difference between passion and skill. As I prepare to leave, I catch one last glimpse of Liz. She stands by the service station, momentarily still amid the chaos of the bar, watching the band with an expression that contains the entire arc of her fall. From ambition to betrayal to abandonment to this, her new reality. Her face holds neither hope nor despair, just the flat acceptance of consequences that can no longer be outrun. The regret isn't for what she did, I realize, but for what she failed to do, for the plan that collapsed, for the escape that never materialized, for ending up alone when she'd calculated on companionship at minimum. I leave money on the table, enough for the drink and a tip larger than the place deserves, and slip out without saying goodbye. Some stories don't need closure. They simply continue in diminished form, the participants adjusting to smaller stages and reduced expectations. Liz Bennett's new life will unfold in places like the Rusty Nail, Serving drinks instead of ambition, watching bands that remind her of what she lost, her dreams as faded as the neon sign that buzzes above the door. Outside, I turned toward home, leaving her to the life she chose, then lost, then settled for. In my line of work, you learn quickly that justice and punishment aren't always delivered by courts or cops. Sometimes they arrive in the form of empty tip jars, sticky floors, and the slow, grinding realization that what you had was worth more than what you wanted.